Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, founder of Automation Bridge. And today, this is, I'm looking out for you all today, okay? I try to do my best to give the best guidance when it comes to marketing and technology. And usually, that's always it takes place online, and you need a nice, secure home. Okay. You need a place that you can be very comfortable and confident, can handle your business and your marketing without worry. And that place is your website. So I have been looking high and low, far and wide to find a valuable, highly individual with high acumen to teach us about the 3 S's and potentially 4 S's of your website for entrepreneurs. Let me say this. I am a self-taught web developer. There's all kind of bad habits I've picked up and all kind of things I just don't know. And it wasn't until I talked to today's guest where it highlighted not just how foolish I am sometimes on the internet, on website building, but also a nice reminder that there's always someone smarter than you that specializes in the exact thing you may know a little bit about. And the best thing is she also has a means for you to take advantage of such acumen and resources for a very competitive investment, we'll say. So today's episode, everybody, please welcome Stephanie Hudson. And she is a geek, entrepreneur, inventor, and notebook hoarder. Now, this is important. Anybody who's a notebook hoarder, we know has some kind of strong affinity towards writing, like they did back in the day, pen and paper. So this is
True.
Stephanie. She started building websites way back in the days of dial-up internet and chunky motors, leveraging nearly 3 decades of experience. She's able to share the tactics and confidence digital agencies need in order to scale and thrive through coaching, mentorship, and her white label company, which we will talk about later, Focus WP. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
What is up, Chris? It's so good to be here. I'm really excited. And that's the worst part about being on an interview or anything is having the bio read. I hate it. No, you did a good job. Like, you're good at reading it, but oh, it's so awkward.
It's a thing. And
It
I
is a
want to
thing.
listen, I want to dive in and give some behind the curtains.
Sure.
Stephanie and I met through a mutual friend. Actually, everybody knows because she's been on the podcast a couple of times, KPC. So she continues to be my AC BFF, as well as it's expanding to just like all things internet software and recommendations. So just a huge resource. And
Kay is awesome. Yeah, I love that
she
lady.
absolutely is. And how we got connected, we spent an entire Saturday. We did not know each other, by the way.
Me and you, not
Yes,
Kay.
you and I, because Stephanie, I went through her company to get my website tuned up, and she personally reached out to make sure everything was okay and offered to jump on a call. So I'm a little hesitant because it's the weekend, everybody. It's like it's Saturday. I'm a family person. Should I really take time away from my family and, jump on this call? But I did it. And oh my goodness, I think between everything that you shared and just us sharing our stories and resources and everything, it was like, hey, look, even if you didn't want to be my friend, you can't. You can't not be my
We were
friend.
locked in after that. You guys, it was
From this
supposed
point
to, it was
on.
like, I think we scheduled a 20-minute chat, and I
Yep.
believe we were
Yep.
on the call for 2.5 hours.
Yep. Easily,
Yeah.
everybody. I was so
And we
glad my
talked,
wife was
and we would
gone.
like
Oh
talk
my gosh.
anything one of us would say, the other one would be like, oh my gosh, I have something about that.
Yes.
It was super fun.
Absolutely. And what made me say you've got to come on the podcast, everybody, is if you're a avid podcast listener, you know that I have an episode called the marketing layer, and it's the teaching that you should have your landing pages separate from your website so that if your website goes down, your marketing stays up. And I was so refreshed, and we'll talk about it, to hear that Stephanie uses a similar approach to like your domain and hosting. And I was like, oh my gosh, like
Yep.
you are the me in websites. Like I
For
should
sure.
defer all expertise to you and your company, just like I would expect somebody to do that for me in marketing and technology. So let's
Oh, for
start
sure.
from the top here. You came up with this.
Sure.
I didn't. I just introed it. Stephanie, there are 3 S's to having an effective website presence for entrepreneurs online today. What are those S's?
So there's a lot of factors. There's more letters than just
Right.
3 S's. But, and also, by the way, if anybody's watching and not listening, I have an absolutely insane 3-month-old kitten who loves to attack me while I'm on
Yes.
podcasts, which
He's
is
all over.
super embarrassing. Yeah, I hate it. Anyway, uh, so websites, they have a lot of different things that you need. But when you are setting up websites for your clients, when you're doing getting these things prepared for other people in particular, also for yourself too, though, there's the 3 S's that I think would be really useful for everyone to really focus in on with a new site or even the landing pages and things like that. You want to look at your speed, your security, and your SEO. Those are my 3 S's for today.
Speed, everybody, security, and SEO. And I know
Hmm.
there's some listeners, this is what they did, Stephanie. They heard that and they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I
Tell
got
me.
that. I got that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always.
Hmm.
You got to be fast. It's got to be secure. And yeah, you need SEO. All right. Next episode.
Sure.
Right. Pause, everyone. Pause, because I want to put myself on display here. I've had troubles with website speed, not my Automation Bridge website per se. That one's been pretty good. But depending on your backend technology, and I'm not talking about like the amount of plugins, I'm more so talking about the type of plugins and different website builds require different resources. So let's start with the first S. Where do people miss the mark when they're trying to achieve the fastest website speed, and what do they really need to be mindful of
Two
and looking
words.
for?
2 words are the actual problem tons of the time. Cheap hosting.
Mm.
Sorry. I hate to say it.
Ooh, ooh, that
Cheap
hurt.
hosting. If you really want speed, you need to have some resources devoted. And it just makes sense that you're not going to get the top of the line if you're going for the $2.99 a month hosting plans. There are
Mhm.
different types of setups, there are different types of servers, there are all kind of different things that are going on under the hood that need optimization to run properly and to be able to deliver a fast site. The second most common issue on top, and by the way, just because it's not cheap doesn't mean it has to be super expensive either. There are
Yeah.
some very reasonable options. You're not looking at hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month for
Hmm.
hosting. You can easily get super fast hosting for less than $50 a month. So
Yeah.
if you could spend $30 a month, would that be worth it to have a fast website? Something like that would be really doable. Okay, so then the next most important thing with speed is images. That will always be the next culprit.
Wow.
People uploading images that are too big. Either they are too big in their dimensions, like they're too wide and too tall for the space they're in. So they're only going to ever show this big, but you're loading a file that's that big. The other thing is, even if they're the right dimensions, they could be too big of a file size or too heavy of a file. So the one of the best ways is to have your files optimized ahead of time. But if you're not a Photoshop user or whatever, there are some online tools that you can use. But one of the other things that I try to always have on a site is an image optimization plugin. There's a ton of them out there. They almost all have a free level. Short Pixel is the one that we've been using for a while, but there's a bunch. And you put that on your site and you set the maximums that you want a file to be, and then it will automatically upload it. And I even use that in conjunction with Photoshop because it still is always able to squeeze it down just a little bit smaller in size without degrading the quality of it. So those are the 2 top tips for speeding up your website.
I've got to jump in here. This is listen. So what I'm gonna say is Stephanie put the gun on the table, and we're water gun everybody, okay? Water gun, dart gun, something light. But I'm gonna be the one firing shots, okay? I usually reserve this for my premium podcast, but I'm gonna say this because it has been a lifetime of terrible service and experience with everybody on their platform. I'm going to say it, Stephanie. Listen, everybody, I'm on my own
Do it.
island. Stephanie, we did
I don't even know
not
what you're going to
connect.
say,
She has
but I'm
no clue what
ready.
I'm about to
I'm
say.
here for it.
Stay away from GoDaddy. Everybody listen to me.
Yes. I was like, please be that one thing you're going to say. Yeah.
Run the other. I cannot stand their hosting, their pricing, their service, everything about GoDaddy. I've never had a good experience. Never had a good experience. Thankfully, I've never signed up with them. I know a lot of people will buy their domains from them. Okay, so go for it. But they
Buying
start
the
to
domains
add
from
on.
them is the least bad thing. That's the
Yes,
least
that's the
bad thing. Don't freak
least
out
bad.
if you have domains that you own through them. But yeah, and then if you go all the way to the other end of their managed services and all that, they have some good stuff there. But your
Okay,
basic run of the mill, I mean, I don't do that
which is
either,
what
but
most
still,
people
like their
do.
basic run of the mill. Remember Danica Patrick?
She's the
Used to
one.
be on there all the time.
I think
Remember
it's her
she was the
fault.
one that got all this. It's her fault. I say that all the time too. I blame Danica Patrick for the
Yep.
state of affairs on the internet and all these slow
Yeah.
websites.
It's just like, Hooters meets a race car
I know,
driver
right?
and it's, ooh, GoDaddy is sexy. Look at it. If you want to be
They
hip,
try to
if you want to
make
be in the,
hosting sexy.
they,
Yeah,
they tried to make hosting
it's not.
sexy.
It's just not.
So
Hosting should
listen,
not be sexy. It's no.
it really
Anyway.
shouldn't. So stay away from cheap hosting. Like Stephanie said, I believe the best expectation for a website, and let me say this, everyone, this is your home online. Compare what you're about to pay for a website annually to any building rent you would pay anywhere else. And it's always the least expensive and highest value back. But anywhere between $10 and $50 a month, you can really get some good service, everyone. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're pinching pennies on the hosting, don't do it. The second thing I'll say is we love Canva, everyone, but Canva is a culprit. Canva is a culprit. When Stephanie mentioned your file size, and I'm glad you said it, Stephanie, because it went. I had to go back to a time where I was looking at my website. I'm like, man, why is it load so slow? I'm the type of person that'll go into Best Buy and like on the computers there, load my website, and just see how
Yeah,
how
that's good.
fast it
That's smart.
goes. Right on a new computer
Yeah.
that's not cached. I don't have any. It's never been there.
Uh-huh.
Right. So it showed me that some images would just load slow on my mobile device. I use other people's phone, load my website, everything else. And that's when I realized that the default of a Canva export is usually like 5x the size that you actually need. So everybody make sure you're checking the size of that template that you used in Canva, because the size is so easy. You're like, oh yeah, YouTube thumbnail. But when you look at it, it's like 900 by 1200, and you just have a
Right.
little bitty bio picture. So what I've learned to do is I make sure that I've got an SOP with my team that we go in, click that button that says compress, and then I change the dimensions down. You can scale it down, and then that gets me below usually around 100 kilobytes, and then I'll go and upload it to like Tiny Ping or something like
Yeah.
that and get
If
it
you can
even
get it
smaller.
under 100, yeah, under 100K is good. You should never, I mean, for most websites, you're not really going to need anything wider than 1080.
Right.
And I'm not talking about a background image that's like full screen, full width, whatever. But for the most part, any website, any images that aren't showing up full width, full screen anywhere, 1080 is probably a safe number, and it's easy to remember because you think of 1080p. So if you think of
Mm-hmm.
that number as you're um, shrinking it down, most of the time you need smaller than that, even. But that's just
Yep.
a little rule of thumb if you're not an image person. Hey, Chris, do you know how to tell if your site is fast or not, other than going to Best Buy?
No, I'm sure there's ways, but that's like my main go-to,
Yeah,
or borrow somebody's
that was a
device.
good
Please
one. That
share.
was a good one. Yeah. There's a website called GT Metrics, Metrix. It's free. You can. They have paid accounts, but I use a ton of things on there. I have a free account with them. You don't even have to
Mhm.
create an account. It's just like they're just saints of the internet. You can go on there and run a speed test, and it will give you a color coded grade. It'll show you a bunch of gobbledygook about what's going on under the hood. That's the
Mhm.
reason if it's slow or not. But you using those results in combination with how it feels on the front end of your site. So Chris, when you and I were working on speeding up your site, for example, I was like, well, we're only increasing it. Like we weren't getting the results I was hoping in the numbers as much. Like I wanted to get it a little bit higher. And you were like, it feels like lightning. And so it's like, okay, well then let's not break, like let's go with that. Right. So
Yeah.
those numbers are to be taken with a grain of salt. It's mostly to be used for figuring out where the issues lie, but it can be a really, really useful tool for seeing what's going on your site and just to get an idea of how fast it is loading.
Yeah, and I want to kind of park here on speed for a minute because that's probably one of the most important for a marketer. But I think holistically, everybody needs their site to load fast. I had a situation where I came and we were really trying to get the most of the juice out of the fruit and just squeezing really hard. And I have been struggling with this, everyone, for a long time. So I run my courses and learning platform. My whole entire academy is WordPress based, and I use LearnDash. It's a learning management system and LMS plugin for WordPress. And I have just never been able. I've tried different themes. I've tried to minimize my plugins. Whatever the case is, it just wouldn't. It couldn't achieve the speed that I desire for people logging in XYZ. Heavy resource, a lot of calls to the database, all of that. And when you told me cheap hosting, you didn't necessarily say cheap hosting. You didn't say that, but you were saying this problem may be your hosting. Like we're doing all we can. You may have to look at another hosting. Just talk people through something like LearnDash, for instance, may just require a specific type or a different type of hosting because of how it handles things. Are there anything in that vein that you want to talk about, or any other plugins or instances you've seen that could mandate that?
Sure. There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood. And let me sort of pause 1 second to explain another thing first. If you guys are familiar with caching, like Cash Me Outside. Remember that chick? I love that. Not that kind, though.
Not that
It's
guy.
caching is where the browsers, and it happens on multiple levels, but either your hosting company or the browsers will download files that are associated with your website, and they'll sort of hang on to them so that if somebody goes to it, it can serve them up really fast. So caching helps to speed up your site. That's another thing that can be turned on in a few different places. However, when you have a site that is dynamic, like a learning management system, some e-commerce things, stuff like that, if you go and check, you've been on a site where you check a box or click something and the whole page reloads. Well, that's different. When you're on an LMS, you're interacting, you're ticking boxes and things are changing dynamically. Or if you're looking at a shopping cart and you tick a box to add something or remove something or increase the quantity or whatever, those can't be cached because they have to be changing dynamically. You can't be looking at the same thing that somebody else looked at in another session. So because of that, you lose that little advantage of being able to cache things, which makes the hosting even more important, regardless of the other stuff that's going on under the hood. That being said, there's still a lot more calls going back and forth to the database and all kind of geeky things that happen behind the scenes that do require certain configuration from a hosting company.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because as marketers, everyone, we're looking at making pages dynamic and personalizing them. You want to be sure that if you are running a caching plugin or some kind of caching environment, and you want that page to be able to be served up to that user dependent on what they're doing, maybe the source they came to from your website. If they're logged in, they do a thing. Since they click this button, you want it to display differently. That was my case. I mean, I had a very personalized experience. Once you log in, you complete a course, something unlocks. If you do something else over here, it's displaying text. So I could not use caching or else, of course, it'd be outdated and would throw off the customer journey. So that's what I'm saying. I had a very special, I'll say, need. So yes, you want to not go with cheap hosting, but you also need professionals like Stephanie and her company that can guide you through, because I can't tell you how many times I changed hosting thinking like, oh, it'll be better over here. And it wasn't. And all of the hosting I tried was not terrible. It just wasn't optimized for that particular use case and outcome.
Yeah. And if you guys want, I will we've got a link to share at the end of the show, and I'll put up a few recommendations for some of the hosting companies that we trust and use ourselves. We don't offer hosting personally
Hmm.
at Focus WP, but we know enough about it to know which ones we trust and don't trust. So
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of trust, I think that's a great segue to go into security. The second S that you mentioned,
Mhm.
first was speed, next is security. I say this reservedly because, again, self-taught web developer, I probably have had my back end out. The hospital suit. You think you're all good because the front is covered,
Yep.
and then you say, "What's that breeze back there?" I'm bracing myself for what you're going to say, but how do we approach security? What does that look like for just the average WordPress builder, a website builder that wants a website, their logo on it to look good, and people go to pages and fill out forms and provide information and hopefully like give money at some point?
Um, there's a lot you could do here too, but I can give sort of some basics of
Mm-hmm.
some good things. One that is almost a non-issue anymore is you want to have an SSL certificate, which comes through the hosting company. It's usually sort of a no-brainer. There was a time period a few years back where this was a huge deal
Yep.
and everybody had to have this added, but now you'll have the little green lock and you will get big red scary warnings from the browser if you don't have it. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing to have your that just keeps your communication from the server and back sort of encrypted. It keeps it secure. So that's one thing. Another thing that is one of the easiest things to do is to limit the access that the users on your website have. So if you log into your website account, how many admin level users are there? Your website is only ever as secure as the weakest admin password, is a little thing I like to say. So
Mm,
if you've got
wow.
multiple people that have admin access to your site, do they really need it? Sometimes, even if we build a site for a client, the client doesn't even need it. They can have editor access or lower levels. There are various levels that are built into WordPress. And then when you add things like LearnDash or other systems in, it adds other user levels as well.
Hmm.
And so you just want to make sure that you give them as much access as they need, but not more than that. The second thing is, of course, to make sure that people are using secure passwords. You can set in WordPress to force that, and you can turn on two-factor authentication, which is a little bit the bane of our modern existence. I get it; it's super annoying that everywhere you log in, somebody's going to email you or text you a code that you got to go get and then put that thing in. It's like passwords weren't bad enough; now we have to do two things.
Yeah.
But but it is unbelievably good for securing your website. So just the user element alone, limiting the access and having it be really secure passwords, that goes a long way to locking down a website. That's number one. Do you want me to go
Yeah.
into more, or do you
Well,
have anything?
let me just see if I can say this. You're only as secure as the lowest user's password
Nope.
strength.
The weakest admin password.
Okay, you're only as secure as the weakest admin password. I
Yep.
have a to do to check all my admins and make sure their password is nice and very well. What is it? Very difficult to guess.
Yeah.
I can see that. I listen, Stephanie. I've been on the receiving end of somebody giving me access to their website, and the password
Mhm.
literally is 1 2 3 4.
Yeah.
And I cringe because no password should be that. But now when you put it in the context of website security, oh geez, even more scary. Okay, go on. You can
Yeah.
keep going.
No, it's easy to do, and we all have a million passwords and nobody wants to deal with it. But, get a password keeper. Use LastPass or 1Password or one of those. They all have there's people that are scared of all of them. But listen, if you're
Hmm.
writing stuff down on a sticky note or using an insecure password, that's worse. Trust me.
Yeah.
Like, just do it. Just get something where you can keep those things secure, and then you don't have to stress out about having a 20 or 30 character password. Just click a button and it puts it right in.
Yep.
So so the users are one. you want to make sure, again, that your host is using proper security protocols and things. That's a little bit more tricky to understand. That's why if you go with one of these more reputable hosts that we trust, that's a good thing. And then also you can add a plugin. So both WordFence and iThemes have a free and a premium level. Both of their free levels are great, and they will do you a world of good. Um, we we use the premium iThemes security plugin, which adds a bunch more security features on there. But that in and of itself is a really solid choice, either one of the free plugins. You just install those. You can even just run basically the default settings. They both have a little onboarding thing, and that will get you a big chunk of the way toward locking things down a bit as well.
Yeah, and listeners, I hope you're seeing the value here, because though we may have came out of the gate telling you, hey, you need to pay more for that hosting, listen to all of these resources that Stephanie has mentioned that are at no cost but high quality. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to grow into necessity. Where you're at is probably fine for the free version of a lot of these tools. And by the time you need something more, your business has proven that it needs more. So you can't just go out there and start installing free plugins, everyone. You've got to have the right guidance to do so. And speaking of free, I don't know where this lands, but you gave me a free tool that just really made stuff so much easier. It was really the counterpart to the marketing layer on websites, and it was a company called Cloudflare. And you said, Chris, you heard what I was doing, how I was handling things. You're like, okay, I'm gonna give this to you. It's free.
Chris,
It's got a bunch of
you're trying
stuff.
to take it to the next level now
I
for these
know,
folks.
but it helped. It
We're
was
already
so
laying some
great.
tech stuff on them. You're gonna blow their minds.
It was so great. Listen, everybody, Stephanie was so passionate about it. She had me sign up this is the same call on Saturday for 2 hours. And I
Yeah,
did. I
I
signed
forgot
up.
I did that.
Yep. I'm all the way in Cloudflare now. So I just wanted to mention that and let you explain what is Cloudflare and why should they be thinking about it in the manner in which you presented it to me.
Okay, so I'm going to try and make this as simple as I can. And for those of you out there who are marketers and not web developers, I've actually been on a mission lately to educate more web developers about this, because this is something that is crucial to how websites work and function, but
Yeah.
it's technical. And so a lot of people shy away from it and don't fully understand it and feel intimidated by it. It is not something that you need to feel intimidated about, which is, sorry, I'm not even saying what it is, your DNS. You don't need to be intimidated by it, but you need to respect it and understand the basics at least. With the basics, you're perfectly capable of doing what you need to do for your website. The DNS is what routes everything from your website. So you own your domain name.
Mm-hmm.
That's at your registrar. You have, so I'm going to hold this one over here. That's your registrar. You have your website hosting. You understand that. That's where all of your files live and your database lives and everything. And then there's something else that is called your name server. And that's where your DNS is managed. And a lot of people just lop that in with either where they buy their domain or where they host their website. And like we talked about at the beginning, I don't advise that. I think it's better to keep all of that separate, because it's just too many. It's too much riding on any one point of failure. So
Mm-hmm.
if you manage that separately, you can run your DNS through a company called Cloudflare, and you can do this for free as well. And it's scary because you have to point your name servers to Cloudflare, which seems like you're moving your hosting and all this other stuff, and you're not. But you have to use caution when you do this. Follow some tutorials online, or maybe hopefully by the time this is live, I'll have my little tutorial out for it, because this is something that I want to do. But basically, if you use Cloudflare, then that becomes this sort of navigational hub. So if somebody types in just your domain, it'll say, oh, that goes to the hosting. Boom, it'll point them over there. If somebody sends you an email, it's like, oh, that gets routed through Google Workspace. Boom, sends you an email. If it's somebody's trying to FTP, whatever any of the things are. If somebody wants to go to a subdomain, where does that point? Any of the things that are happening on your site, it runs through Cloudflare, and it's this little it's like the old lady with the little button, the little cords at the telephone company, right? She's like, answering the phones and sending you to where you need to be. I'm going to plug you in right here, right there. That's what Cloudflare is doing. There's a little old lady behind the scenes, I think, doing all that every time somebody goes to your website. And it's the other thing about that is it adds a layer of security to your site. It helps to prevent a ton of bad things from happening. So when we install a security plugin or an admin user, we audit our admin users and all of that, they've already gotten to your website. So they've already gotten past that routing bit and gotten to the website, and then we're trying to defend it. What Cloudflare does is it doesn't even let them get there. It blocks them a step earlier. So you could see that that's a big advantage. And some still get through, of course, but that's just another layer of protection. Plus, it's just so much better to have it through there. It's such a great service.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you all a couple use cases. One is I was moving hosting, and because I had all of my name
Can I tell you
server-
can I predict what it is?
Yes.
Okay, you moved hosting and you moved your name servers because you were moving just this piece here, right? Like you weren't changing your domain, you weren't changing your email, you weren't changing any of that stuff. You moved your hosting, but when they changed the name servers to point to it, it broke everything else.
It broke everything else, and I had to
That means
hire.
your email went down.
Yes.
Your everything happened. Yeah.
And speaking of email, I was using Google domains, which got purchased by, I think, Squarespace now or whatnot. Whoever they got purchased by makes me feel yucky about.
Yeah.
And I had all of my Google Workspace email stuff configured in Google Domains. So when it came time to change my hosting and point elsewhere, I had to go to Google and try to like reconfigure that. And I think that was the thing that you were like, you should put that in Cloudflare. Because if I had it in Cloudflare, I'm just literally going and updating what's called an A record, everyone. That's the little thing that the lady who routes all the websites. That's
one of those little things in the punch board. What is that thing called? There's a word for that.
Cork board? I don't know. It looks like
it's
a
not
cork board, but
it's
it's
like
an operator.
Plugging in the wires, right?
Yeah. John Wick.
Wires.
They still had that in John Wick. So maybe you're right. Maybe there is somebody doing this.
I think there is. Yeah, she's great. She's really fast. Don't worry.
She's amazing. Yeah. One day we'll meet her. And
I hope
then I just had to update the A record, which she took it from here and plugged it in here, and it went to my new hosting.
It doesn't even touch your email. It doesn't affect it in any way. It doesn't. Your email doesn't even know what happened. It's like completely over here and doing its own thing. I'll tell you something else for you, marketing automation folks. Speaking of your emails, you do those little SPF records and your DMARC. And your DKIM. You guys know all those acronyms?
Oh, man. We got to get Adrian Savage back on here and break those down.
You start doing those.
He came on
guess
before.
where those things all live? Cloudflare.
Yep.
So, again, they're all in one place so that if one of these properties or elements or something, if you want to change your email or if you want to change your switch, not that you would ever switch from ActiveCampaign. But if you wanted to change to it maybe from something else or whatever, right? Like any of these changes you want to make, it can all be done in that one place without affecting the other bits and pieces that are connected.
Yeah, it's really secure, everyone. And we're at a deep level of technical here. I should have put a warning on the beginning of this.
I know. That's when you said you wanted to start down Cloudflare. I'm like, really?
Right.
Okay.
So
I can hang. I can hang, but can they, Chris?
Listen, it's up to my neck right now, everyone. I'm just treading just a little higher than most. And I'll say this, don't go at it alone. I had to get my new hosting provider to do it for me, which I met through Stephanie. He logged in and configured all the Cloudflare stuff. And I'll say this, everyone, the first pass that he did it, my website was faster already just by letting Cloudflare handle the routing. So again, there's, Stephanie, I went to the Focus WP website to do website maintenance, and I got in there and truth be told, foolishly enough, I thought it was like a button that you're going to do. You're going to go into my website, click a button, do some things. But as you educated me on all of the things that we're talking about on this podcast, which by the way is why I invited her, I'm like, I nobody's ever told me this. I never knew it. I When you go and hire a web developer, most people are hiring, the ones who can do it for the cheapest or the fastest. And this is just a wealth of information that you need to know about if you're going to keep your website up and running, which means your business would stay up and running. So let's go to the last S, because we'll go on forever. SEO. What do we need to know about SEO and have covered?
So we're talking about the basic levels of all of these things, right?
Yep.
SEO is its own whole entire ocean of information and techniques and tactics and all of these things. But if you're going to have a website that is set up for success, you need to have what I call I like to say I make my websites SEO ready.
Mm,
And what I mean by that, that's not so if I launch a new website and they're not hiring me for SEO or anything like that, or if I'm auditing a website and they're not hiring me for ongoing SEO, I will still check all of these things to make sure that this website is ready for an SEO endeavor. And there are a few things that Google looks for in the technical side of things, right? You want to have the meta tags. That's like a it sounds like a early 2000s kind of slang, like the meta tags. People would put
yeah.
words in there. But what the meta tags are on your site, there it's the title of your page, it's the description of your page, it's things like that. You want to make sure that all of that stuff is, if there's an excerpt or not, you want to make sure that all of that is there and it is clear. That those are the things that will, by the way, in 90% of the time anyway, show up in a Google search. So those things are very important for click-throughs and stuff like that. You want to also make sure that you have like a featured image, things, have you ever seen somebody share like a personal site of theirs and it's like the middle of a big wide image that got cropped, or it's something
Yep.
completely unrelated to what they're sharing or whatever, and it throws you off and it doesn't feel legit.
Yep.
The other thing about, what was that? There was one other thing I was just going to say about this. I forgot. Oh, I remember. The H tags on your website. This is going to be, it's not hard, but this is important, you guys. The H tags are not for styling your website. We sometimes were saying like, oh, this is I want this to look big. I'm going to
Yep.
make it an H1.
Yep.
Okay. The reason that that's defaults to a big size is because that's supposed to be the most important thing on your page. So if you ever remember, like back in school when you would make like an outline with Roman numerals, right? Like Roman numeral 1,
Hmm.
and then it would have like underneath that it would be like A, B, C, and under those would be like the little I, 2 I's, 3 I's, right? So think of those as your H tags. They are making up the outline of your page. The H1 is the title of the outline. So there's only one of those. And then you go down and you have H2, and then you can break down under there and you can have some H3s under there, maybe even H4s. It goes all the way to 6, but I don't know very many people who go that deep. It
Hmm.
would be a pretty long, detailed article. And then you can have another H2, and then you can have some more H3s and 4s under there. It's the little points within there. And that is one of the things that Google scans, and that gives them an idea of what that page is about so that they know whether or not that's going to serve the person who is searching for information. So if that's clear and you are the one that's going to answer their questions, then Google will serve your site up for them to click on. So that's a little thing. And it doesn't matter what those look like on the front end. So sometimes what I will do is if like the page title, if it needs to have keywords in it and things like that, I will make a big fancy word that's like, check this awesome thing out. And then underneath it, it will be the keyword rich, which is smaller. So don't get caught up in how the H text looks on your site. Make sure that you're
Hmm.
structuring it the other way. The styles can be done, like the styles can be changed, but you want to make sure that because Google's not looking at it visually, it's reading the code. So you want to make sure that Google and Bing and everybody else can read that outline of the page.
Yeah, that's really good. Those H tags, everyone, they're for instructing Google to find you
Mhm.
quicker, not just for design, where I know that's where I initially found is like, oh,
Yep.
this is how you make a blog stand out. Bigger text, smaller
Mhm.
text, big, bold, black, and then this is off gray. And so, yes,
Yep.
you can make it look good later, but use those H tags effectively. And here's one thing that I stumbled upon when you mentioned featured images. This is extremely important, everybody. Now, I use a SEO plugin that allows me to do all of this stuff. Without one, I really don't know how you would do it, but it's a little, it's a, it's not a hack. This is just functionality that you need to understand how it works. When you share your page on social media, it's going to pull your featured image,
Mhm.
and it's going to pull from two places. You can do it at the page or article level, or you can do it at the website level. You can do like a fallback image at the website level so
Mhm.
that if you never upload a featured image or forget to, it displays. Here's what I would say to you. That featured image is so important because sometimes you can use it like an ad, so
Mhm.
that if someone else that is unknown to you comes across your article and is like, hey, check out this cool article, all they're doing is copying and pasting and sharing that article. But now in Apple Messages, I know in Google Messages, it does the same thing. It pulls that image. So you've got real estate to make something compelling. You could add text to that image, but I no longer look at it as a featured image. It's like the ad, the organic ad to this page or post is how I
For sure.
design, for those for that particular
And
SEO
I'll,
function.
I'll throw a couple more tips on top of that if you'd like. You don't actually have to have an SEO plugin to do a featured image. The SEO plugins are a great idea. We use all in one. No, we use SEO Press Pro.
Okay.
All in one SEO is another good one. Yoast is another good one. If that they have, there's just different ones that different people prefer. They all basically are good.
Mhm.
So when you, even without a SEO plugin, if you look at a page or a post in that right hand column that's got like the update button in the upper right and all that, and there's all that stuff down below, if you get all the way to the bottom, it will say featured image. And you can add an image right there from your media library or upload a new one. So you can do that on each and every page. The SEO plugins offer the fallback, which
Yeah.
is really useful in case you forget or if it doesn't have something special. There's also a setting in some themes, excuse me, I think it's in the themes that will let you use the first image in that poster page as
Mm,
the featured image, which is
yeah.
also useful, especially if you're doing a blog post and you're going to put the big fancy like cover image on the top, and then it just will automatically grab that and use it as your featured image. However, you want to make sure too, again, that it shares well because sometimes it looks junky. Here's another little
Yep.
tip. Excuse me, sorry, I keep choking. If you go, and I can never remember the URL, I always just Google it myself. Go Google Facebook debug, and it will pull
Ah,
up a
yes.
link. And this is another free tool. Man, I'm giving all the freebies away today, Chris. It's another, I'm giving away all my secrets that I do all
Right.
this stuff for free. It's a tool where you can put in the page has to be public, and you put in the link to your new post or page. If you've just put a new blog post up, let's say you put that link in and click the button to crawl, or I can't remember what the button
Yeah.
it says, but you click that button and it will show you what that page will look like if you share it or if it comes up in search results.
Yes.
If you don't like how it looks, go change it, but
Yep.
remember to come back and re-scan it, because if you don't, it's like Facebook at least has now saved and cached that previous way. So go back and redo it again until it looks right, and then so then you have confidence that you know how to do it, and you don't have to go like I pretty much all of us have done at one time or another, right? You go and share it on social media and then delete it really quick once you see what it looks like.
Yep.
Go do that
Yep. Yep. And some
so you
people
can
do
see.
it and they're like, how do I change this? Why does it keep doing that? That's why, folks. That is why.
Mhm.
So, oh my goodness, such goodness. And again, it's worth repeating. Listen, I've been using the internet and websites on it and building for over a decade, and I'm just now finding this stuff out. And that's what technology does, Stephanie. It lowers
Mhm.
the barrier of entry to absolute zero, and
Yep.
anybody can get in and start doing this stuff. And there's no body mandating or no quality control to say, hey, wait a minute, you're using those H tags wrong. So until you get it right, your website won't work. No, this is the Wild Wild West. People can just put any and everything out there. So I don't want you all to be lost. And I can feel it. Stephanie, I can feel it. We're about 40 minutes in ish, and somebody's eyes glazed over. They're like, man, I
Uh-huh.
really like this
Yeah.
podcast because it teaches me so much marketing stuff, this and that. This one may have short
Like,
circuited
it's
their
too
brain.
much. It's
They're
too
just
much.
like, okay, you actually lost me at DNS. I just tapped out
Yeah, I
and
want for the record, that was Chris's idea,
that
not
was
I
my
knew that
doing.
was too much. I knew that was too much.
They needed it. Listen, go back,
They needed it,
rewind,
yeah.
and look, they were on the elliptical and they just couldn't
Yeah.
hit the button. They're just like, I just got to keep listening to it, or they were jogging or driving something. But since you made it
In
this
the
far,
shower. I'm a big
and
shower podcast listener.
right,
You can't hit the buttons
you
then. Get
can't
your
hit
phone
it.
all
You
wet.
just had to listen to it. So those of you that have endorsed, now on the flip side, there's people that are just like, give me more. Who is Stephanie? Let me find
Mhm.
out more. Right. So I got a mixed bag, but for both, there is an extra S that as Stephanie was talking, I was like, hey, wait a minute. There's one more, and that's service. All right. You should not be doing this alone. Stephanie and I were Facebook chatting, and she asked me, she said, who's maintaining your website? And I was like, hesitantly, the second she asked, she wasn't judging me. She was just
I
trying to
love
get a gauge. I instantly felt small and was like, am I going to tell her the truth? And I said, me. And she just responded with one of those astonished emojis. And the reason being is because I am now a firm believer after working with a company, you should not be doing much of anything on your website if you don't have to. I really, really recommend that you
I
let the
mean, I don't know
people
much if you shouldn't
do
do
it.
much of anything, but
Listen,
the things that are the crucial
but
high-tech
they don't know the
elements,
crucial. So it's all
that
lumped.
that's true, yeah.
You know, those who
Yeah.
endured this podcast know some of the crucial. But
You guys handle the content and the
yeah,
automations and leave the
yes.
rest to us.
It's just like if you're gonna get a home built, don't ask your cousin, your brother, your neighbor. Just go to the reputable company. You don't have to worry about the floor falling in and the house collapsing. I've seen too many websites go wrong. I really have. And you have a means now. There is a service available to you where they will maintain your website and be your eyes and ears when you don't know what to look for, what to listen for. So, Stephanie, give the listeners a little bit of insight of what the service is, how they can get started with it, and where they should go.
We offer care plans. It is a white label service that we do. That means you can use it for yourself or you can use it for your customers or your clients' websites, and they won't even know that we're there. We update everything every week. All the plugins, themes, anything that needs updated. We clear out all of the junk messages in the back end that are trying to sell you something. We optimize things, clear out the database. We do all the things that are like, you don't even want to know about it, right? It's just boring
Yep.
technical stuff. We
Yep.
also we run backups every single day of your site, so just in case something tragic were to happen or something breaks, we can roll it back. And we send you a report at the end of the month that will have your logo on it. So if you wanted to just forward it to your clients, if you do that. And by the way, did I mention, Chris, that it is stupid cheap?
It
It's
is.
$34 a month. It's $34 a month. And if you want to resell this, you can charge easily $99 a month for what we offer. Some charge even, 50% or 100% more than that. And then if you have 3 customers with us, then we'll maintain your site for free. So there you have it.
Yes. So where do they go, Stephanie? What's the
Where should they go?
direction?
You
Yes.
mean I need a call to action? You marketers.
Yeah. Got to get the marketing in.
My website is focuswp.co. And if you guys go to focuswp.co/all systems go, you'll get to see some more info about all of this. And you might even get a fun little discount code just for being friends with Chris L. Davis like I am.
Yes.
And And also, I didn't really talk about this, but we also offer development services and other agency services
Hmm.
as well. We're basically a full white label provider. So we do these care plans, and that's like a small little thing. That's just a thing we do. It's just our bread and butter. We just crush it out. But we also have 6 different agency teams that you can use as if they're your own team. Like we'll just be your team. And we have developers, designers, copywriters, video editors, anybody,
Hmm.
SEO experts, and we also have some VAs if you need just a little bit of admin help. So any of those teams, you can just come and buy some hours, submit a ticket. It's all just hourly at a what I like to refer to as a markupable rate. Depends how many hours you buy at a time. And that's it. I don't know. I'm
Yeah. No,
feeling a
that's
little
great.
lonely up here, Chris. I don't know what to.
That's great.
Oh, good. You're back. Thank you.
I, I'll say this: help has arrived, everyone. I am saying it. I am not trying to push products. I have nothing against pushing products, by the way, especially when you stand by them. But I just want to say I've dealt with this pain for so long, and I simply didn't know where help could come from. So I just want to help you all. Just imagine with me as we close, everyone, a day and age where you're not logging into the back end of your website ever, seeing all those red
Those red
dots on the
circles.
left.
Oh, it's so
Oh my
stressful.
goodness. I've logged into websites where it's like 50 updates available, and you just don't
Do
want
you,
to touch anything at that point.
do you know why it's important to run those updates?
I don't. I think I do, but I'll let you say it.
There's usually only 2 reasons. It's either a feature or a fix.
Feature or
So
fix.
if it's new, if it's, if you're running your Learn Dash thing and they're like adding on new modules or new whatever, that will be an update. If
Yeah.
you are running Learn Dash and it's a security patch, that's because something is vulnerable in there. And the way to tell, there's also major and minor. And this is a little trick if you guys aren't super geeky like me. It will be like maybe you'll be on version 10.2.13 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the farther down to the right the numbers are, the less significant it is. The first
Mm.
number is if that first number is changing, that's a major update and you want to use extreme caution. Make sure you have a backup and everything. The second number is kind of big. If it's the third number, it's probably something minor. Like a little tweak or a minor change to it that probably won't break anything, but you still want to use caution and you don't ever want to run updates without having a backup that you know how to restore. It doesn't
Yep.
matter if you just have them; you got to know how to restore them. But
Yes.
anyway, those are some tips. And one other thing, like Chris is sending y'all to my website, and that's great. I'm happy to have you. But I will almost always teach you how to do stuff and even tell you all these free tools and things because I figure like I didn't make any of this up. I just figured out how to do it. And if you want to do it yourself, go for it. But if you get in there and are like, this is awful, I want you to do it for
Hmm.
me, then we're here.
Where they're here. Listen, people, you see, Stephanie is a wealth of knowledge. There's just little bitty things that you didn't know that will improve your life
It's true.
drastically. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on to the podcast. This has been everything I hoped for and more.
Chris, I will geek
So,
out with you any day of the week, my friend.
yes, this is probably one of our shortest meetings, everyone, by the way. One of our shortest ones.
That's right.
Right?
By the way, Chris was on my podcast already.
I was. Yes, yes, yes. The Divi chat was on there.
Uh
And
huh.
if you're in my community, you have the link. And I also emailed. So find
And he
that. It's
blew
on YouTube
everybody's
as
mind
well.
there. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so now you've returned the favor and blew everyone's mind on mine. Thank you again, Stephanie. Greatly appreciated. Listeners, you're welcome. You're welcome. Even if you have a headache right now, you're welcome for that headache because you're going to be better because of it. I promise you, you will. I hope you got the value from it. I want to say thank you for taking the time out to listen, whether you were on the elliptical or in the shower, jogging, or next to your spouse or your best friend, just listening to good old Chris and his next guest. Listen, I
Uh huh.
appreciate driving trucks. I met folks that drive trucks for a living and listen. So thank you all for your
That's cool.
listenership. I greatly appreciate it. Everyone, as
I would
always,
like to make an apology. If you are, before you finish your tagline,
yes.
if you like to listen at 1.25 speed like me, I'm sorry because I talk way faster than Chris. So this is going to be like a torture episode. You either got to listen to me super fast chipmunk speed or Chris really
Yeah,
slow.
yeah. I
I don't
take
know.
my time. I hope one. I'm usually a 1.5, 1.75 type of guy. Sometimes I can get up to two. So no harm, no foul here. But again, everyone's Stephanie's wealth of knowledge, and we have the same middle initial. So, anyways, thank you
Me
all.
too.
Thank you all for listening. As the shirt says, everybody
Can I
continue
do it? Can
or
I do it?
start. Go ahead,
Automate responsibly.
my friends.